love those island boys. Little girl, use your head. They will tear you up like a paper toy. Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, no, no, no. When they smile at you, darling, and wink, it's a lethal force that'll bring you down. Trying to get you tipsy like a drink. Love drunk girls.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to It's Layered.
We're in a long-distance friendship that started over 20 years ago when we were in high school.
We'll be talking about all things life, love, family, and anything and everything else under the sun.
Delve deeper with us, because in life, you know, Gine Malayas. What it
How
do,
are
what
you,
it
girl?
do?
Hey.
As I sip on my water, what's new with you, Uribo?
No, I'm good. Like, literally, I'm stuck indoors, even though it's like nice and sunny out and I'm just like, nah, I'm not about this life. It just makes me think, like, it's so funny how we can sometimes compare ourselves with what other people are doing. I feel like such a lazy bum.
No, I'm with you. Especially when it's a nice day, good weather, and there's a vibe out there. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I think I've always felt bad for sleeping in or chilling or like just relaxing, because growing up it was always like uchakarara. Say like in what that means for those who don't understand, Sean, it means you're still sleeping, you know, like girls don't sleep in, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You have to XYZ, and there's always been like that level. So there's a level of guilt that's always like nagging, because you're constantly growing up being compared to so what other girls are supposed to do, etc. So yeah, that leads us to our topic for today, Amanda, which is, you can tell
comparison culture. What do you think comparison culture is for you, Rumbi? You obviously gave a very good example then.
It's African upbringing. That's the definition. Basically, if you're Black, you know what it is.
In third world, Asians got it too.
Really, like I feel for our people. I feel for Asians. Because I think it's just the idea that your performance, who you are, what you do, how you do it, is constantly benchmarked against somebody else. Never good enough. That's basically what it is, really. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe.
No, totally agree with you 100. Like, it's like from an early age, it's like keeping up with the Joneses to another level. Like, It's like everything they do, you should be doing, you should be the one. Like, and even if you are on top, so to speak, you're still being compared. Like, it's like a benchmark you can never reach.
Yes, 1000%. It's unattainable. That's really what it is. Would you say it's healthy to have compare? Because I mean, look, businesses have what they call benchmarking, like looking at what the competitors doing, what others are doing, so you see like if you match up or if you need to level up.
I mean, look at Instagram with Reels and TikTok.
Yes,
that was
exactly.
Instagram used to be about all the photos, and now
it's a completely different beast. So is it healthy? Do you feel as something we do? Is it necessary?
I think it's innate. Like, I do think it's hard to separate yourself from it, because I think you can use it in a healthy way where you're like, okay, this is what I ought to do or I should be doing.
Yes.
But I think as you grow older or as more voices compare you, the line becomes thinner from when it's healthy to when it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're constantly getting it, then you just feel like you're inadequate, right? So it's like a healthy dose, but not like every single thing you do, which it happens, as you said, African parenting, Asian parenting, where it's like every aspect of your life is definitely compared to someone else. And I don't think that's healthy.
At all. And I think it breeds, especially at such a young, impressionable age, it can breed a low self-esteem. It can breed a sense of like not being enough or not, you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that
of course.
like developing. But do you remember the first time you felt it? Like, yo, I'm being compared to Ningi or so and so. Like,
how young?
Sure. How young does it start? Like for those who don't know
what it is. Shout out to my oldest brother who's 40 today.
Hey, happy birthday! So the show, but
yes,
happy birthday, Solo.
How fitting that we're recording this episode on his birthday, and then he is obviously like he's 5 years older than me, so the comparison was like also because like when you have your kids that apart, it's almost like parents forget like how to have a baby in the house, so it's like then they just always Solo never used to cry this much. Solo never used to. It's like, oh my God, I heard you. Like, you know, like it's just when he was 10, I was 5. So you can see like the growth aspect is always like you're reaching. And I think in some ways for me, it makes you grow up so quickly because you're like playing, you always want to catch up to your older siblings, right? Yeah. But then when you got 5 years between you, like there's a lot of catching up to do. There's a lot of catching up to do, you know? So, and also he was a boy. And I think generally in all cultures, it's perceived that boys are easier to raise. I think the fear aspect of them being lost or being naughty is more accepted. Yeah. Whereas with girls, it's like, no, you got to be right. You got to be calm. You got to be, you know, the good woman. So obviously, like, yeah, the comparisons were like always like, I don't even think I realized that was happening. It was just always. And then also, it's normal. And then it creates animosity sometimes, but you're like, I'm not him. Like, I'm not him. Yeah. And I'm someone who's vocal, so obviously I could say that. But a lot of times, sometimes you just keep quiet because you're like, not worth the battle. What about for you?
I similarly, and I think we spoke about it in a previous episode about body image. So growing up, you know, my sister is really petite, like so it would be like like finishing her food because I was chubbier, like, you know, I was definitely I think I went into more detail about this. If you haven't listened to that episode, check it out.
Yeah, it was on our special.
On our special, but definitely I think those are my earliest memories of being compared. And it's just like, yo, bro, how am I going to do this? And it's like, how do you make your body something it's not, or, you know, all that stuff. So it's wild. Like,
especially if you got different personalities, because then it's like I'm loud. I talk a lot. If you haven't realized on this podcast, I like to talk.
No.
I like to talk. So my school reports will be like, she's good, doing well in school, but there's always that bad. She likes to talk, or bad. She disturbs others, or bad. You know, like so. And then Solomon wasn't like that. It was just always, even till this day, he's very chilled and calm and collected. Yeah, which is great for him. But that's the opposite of me. So like, it made it even worse. Like to have a calm child first and a feisty child next was like,
whoa, what's happened? And for me, speaking of personality, so our family moved around a lot, and I was very introverted and to myself, and be like, your brothers and sisters can make friends easily. Like, what's up with you? I was just, you know. So also now when your personality is being questioned, it gets hard. Like, it'd be a lot, yo. And I think if you speak to anyone from Zim, I think anyone can tell you they understand and they know. And of course, it's in other cultures, but we are obviously speaking from our experience. Like in the Zim context of this comparison culture, how much are you compared? Like maybe to give people
an idea. Can't even breathe right. Like you can't even wake up, and well, as you said, you have to wake up at a certain time. Like you can't do nothing without being compared.
You can't talk too much. You can't not talk. Yeah. You can't sleep too much. You can't be out on the streets too much. You can't be eat too much.
You want to go to church.
You can't not go to church. You can't go to church. Like
exactly. And then even when you're at church, participate. Don't just sit there. Because that other girl is singing in choir or whatever. And you're like, damn, there's like no rest, you know, and even like I found even as we grow older, it still happens. Like I'll get like my friends who are slightly older than me and they still get compared. That's not how I raised my kids. That's not how I bought my house. That's not how it's almost like instead of giving us the tools or the ways in which to live our lives or tips, it comes from an underhanded be like someone else, like model yourself against someone. Instead of saying, oh, you know, they have what they have, but what are you thinking for you? Like an open discussion. It's always like, well, they got it, so why aren't you a doctor? They're a doctor.
And there's nothing more anxiety inducing if you go for like a family event and you are women in a kitchen or around a fireplace trying to cook.
Girl.
When comparison culture comes in, it is at that, like it is birthed. Like I think that's where it is created, curated, and amplified, because people will be like, why are you chopping the onions like that? Why don't you chop like this?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing like this? Don't you know how kuku vura salsa make salsa? Like how school hey, bruh. In that, I think that is peak. It's a peak environment of like really making you feel like I will never measure up.
Yeah, never. And if you react, that's also an issue. If you tell people to keep quiet, leave you alone, that's also, it's almost like just stand there and take it and do it. You know, like I remember for my Rora, we didn't do catering. We just had all my cousins over, and one of my aunts who does a bit of catering was like our team leader, and we all had a dish to cook. And obviously when it came to me, it was like, okay, first of all, this is your event, so let's see what you're going to do. Second of all, we know you've been in diaspora, so this is the one thing that we can, you know, really come for you with. And also, do you still remember your culture? You know, it's always a thing. Like, you've been out of the country since 2007. Do you still remember your culture? You know, and like the whole time you're like nervous. You're like, I've cooked this dish 1,000 times. But now when I'm cooking it in front of everybody, it's like you don't even know how to do what you're doing. You're like, and then also you're doing it on the fire. So it's like you can't even, you're trying to control the temperature, and people are just in your ear. Like, oh, then I could tell now. I was Zimi. So it's definitely worse. It's definitely worse for women, Zimbabwean women, than it is for Zimbabwean men. Like, I've never seen my brothers have to kill a cow or even kill a bloody chicken, and they're not judged on that. Like, they're new age now. They don't have to do those things that our fathers probably did. But for women, it's like the standard has stayed the same as it was 50 years ago. You're meant to know how to go and do all those things, even without even being properly taught. Like, if your mother didn't teach you, it's like a big disservice. And an embarrassment to her as well. So not only trying to think of yourself, you're also trying to think of your family name, your mom's name. Like, I don't want to look like I'm an idiot. Yes.
And I feel another thing too, that really where we get compared. School, yes, 1,000%. Like, of course, like, I think that's in a lot, like, pretty standard in a lot of cultures, like third world or like Black community, Asian, I'm sure in Indian culture too, because Indian
is Asian.
But you know, like when people sometimes talk about Asian, they often separate the two.
Yes, but it's still,
I know it's part of Asia, but I'm saying like,
I'm just kidding around.
But for me, it's marriage or like relationship. I don't think it can get any more like intense than that. Like, oh, when are you getting married? Other people are getting married. So-and-so has an in-law. So-and-so has children. Why don't we have children, like grandchildren? I think that is also like peak Zim, probably in a lot of other cultures, but I think that's peak. Because somehow to be married and have children is to have made it to another level. And it's really deep. Like,
but like, just circling back to school, I think like it sucks because And I say this from personal experience, like even if you are top of the class and getting all the grades that people are expecting, one, you have to keep that up. Like you can't
have a bad day.
You can't. Bring a B when you started doing all A's, like a B is like an F, like, you know, like it's just, and then it's like that, and then having that sort of pressure. So it's almost like sometimes even when we think of comparison culture, we always think of the victim, so to speak, in the situation where it's like you're being compared. But also the person who is being compared to is also uncomfortable because it's like, maybe it comes easier to me. Maybe I just get it. Maybe I have better teachers. Maybe I have a better support system around my education. And then now it's like you're sitting there with your cousins and you're like singled out, like, oh, she got all A's. Why can't you? And it's like awkward.
Yes,
exactly. Like, dude, talk about trying to alienate me. Now I can't now, you know, because most of the time when you're someone who's being compared to, you're solo, right? And then there's like a group of people who are being compared to you.
Yes.
So it's like also that divide it creates.
And often it's not like you can't be an all-round. It's like grades are the thing. Like if you are an all-rounder, it's kind of like, I mean, whatever. But it's the grades that matter. So there's no like comparison on like, it's always like about the grade, and it just makes it frustrating. Like, we can go on.
And like comparison culture almost comes with just one way of doing something.
Yes.
So like, it has to be, as you said, the grades that matter. It can't be art or like music. Like that A is not the A I'm looking for, honey. I'm looking for them A's in maths and biology.
Can you tell we are scarred? Because
like, don't you be coming with your A from Mrs. Guy? Like, I don't care about that A.
It don't matter. So what now?
No, art class.
Guys, yes.
So,
I mean, I don't think like you're very smart. Like, I don't think either of us, like, we did pretty well at school in general, but I think there were other facets to us that were just like, so what now? We don't need that. That's not what we're here for. That's not why we sending you to school.
Like, actually funny you said that to me, because I remember in my last year of high school we had Interact, which is like a charity group. I think Rumbi has mentioned it before. And they used a variety show, and then luckily enough I was the president in that year, and then we had to put a show on. And like at our parent-teacher meeting, my dad is sitting there. He hardly used to ever come to these, but the one time he decides to come. And then like my accounting teacher is like, oh yeah, Amanda, like, you know, she can do better than she has done. But like, I know she's been under stress preparing for the variety show and getting everything ready. And then my dad is like, that doesn't matter. Who cares about that variety show? Because ergo, he didn't come to the show, as you can probably tell from that reaction. He didn't think it was important enough. But like, I remember my teacher just looking at him like, this man, because it was so like, such a passionate reaction. Like, I rather the show falter than her grades. But it's like, okay, it's just a couple of tests. It's not going to change my life. Yeah. But to him, it was like, no. And I don't care about your extracurricular activities. Yeah. Like, this is your focus. And I just remember looking at my teacher and just like shrugging, like,
this is what it is.
Don't do. And like, and he tried to like find common ground with my dad, but my dad was like, Jack, if it ain't an A, we're not talking about it.
Let's not worry about that thing.
Like, what do you mean? What show? What charity show? Who cares about charity? If my kid doesn't get this A in accounting, she'll be the charity. Like, that's literally his reaction. He did not care. And I remember looking at this teacher and thinking, wow, thanks, sir, for trying.
Yeah, shame. But like speaking of parents though, like, do they make it worse? I don't even know why I'm even asking this question, because like from me. But like, also though, do they have it easier with the comparison compared to us? Like comparing them to us and our generation. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In a nutshell, I would think yes, wouldn't you, Rumbi?
Yeah.
Because like buying a house, getting set up. I mean, especially for Zimbabweans, this is such a sore topic because a lot of us are going to do those milestones outside of our actual country, you know, whether it's getting married, buying a house, getting that dream, right? Sending your kids to school, all that. We're probably going to do where we're based, wherever in diaspora. And for Zimbabweans who are in Zimbabwe, their hope would be their kids can leave. You know, hardly do you get parents anymore who are raising kids to stay in Zim. Like they want them to go and flourish elsewhere because that's where the opportunities are. So in some ways, I think they did. They also had a support network that was much more stronger than the friends you make later on in life in diaspora. It was just, you know, they didn't have their names being mispronounced. They had people respecting them. They had
put some respect on my name. Yes.
Yeah, like if you work in a softer, more inclusive environment, it's different to someone who's like starting from the bottom, like we've talked about in diaspora
isolated episode.
Yeah, like I feel like they did have it much easier. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there was no benchmark for them because a lot of like my parents came from really tough upbringing, I think, in a lot of ways, in terms of like their parents just fought to keep them alive so they could go to some level of school. You know what I mean? Like that was, there was no, like the bar was, I don't want to say it was low, but it was. Like,
what was? Some didn't even
struggle.
Finish.
Exactly. Not to say that the struggle wasn't immense and really hard to get, but I'm saying like there was no real like, hey, this is what you could be, this is what you, it was just like, yo, we just gotta make something of our lives. Whereas now our parents managed, you know, speaking personally, my parents managed to do well for themselves to a level that even I'm like, yo, can I ever get to that? Or do you get what I mean? Like, it's just different now. Like, so I do think they had it easier. I do, however, think that in terms of, they were just in it from a woman's perspective. It's like, if you're a Murora daughter-in-law, you just got to thug it out. You got to know how to do this. You have to do this right. You have to do, like on that level, I think it was just going to be tough regardless, just the nature of our society. We have the quote unquote luxury that we can go home and leave. And then you know what I mean? And escape some of that comparison. But absolutely, we have it tough. And I think our parents feel the need to apply the pressure on us because they see what their peers are doing, their peers' children, and, you know, like want you to measure up because parents feel like their children are an indication of their success and failure too. So have I failed to raise you? Have I failed as a father? Have I failed as a mother? If you are not XYZ like so-and-so, it's also on them that way. But this thing be deep.
Ish, definitely. Because I mean, there is a saying that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And I think that is so eloquent because it's like, sometimes you're just happy with your little bee. Then someone comes along and says that that's not enough. You're like, oops, I didn't realize, you know? So like, it really does steal that inner joy that you would have. And I think our parents have the same, like they're fine when they're just the two of them or whatever situation you have. But like when someone else comes along and says, oh, but my son, you know, got into Penn State, so was going to Harvard. It's like, oh, oops, okay, so Rumbi just getting in, you know, in SA or Amanda just going to, it's not good enough. You know, it's almost like only because someone else has come along and shown them different. So as you said, so rightfully, it's because now they had more and more people to compare to. Whereas everyone before was on an even keel, with, you know, trying to get our independence. We're just trying to have a roof over our heads. And then it quickly changed to how much material stuff can you have, or how much can you push yourself in your career, and and
I remember just chirping like, oh, your cousins bake every week. I don't like the most random stuff, and I was just like, bruh, like I ain't a baker like that. Like that's not even my calling, you know, stuff like that. It really becomes, it's fascinating. Some of the things you have to laugh. And the funny thing is, I don't know if you've ever tried this. I've definitely tried this on my parents to compare them, and then they're like, hey, not a comparison thing, and I'm like, bruh. welcome.
Or they give you some sort of excuse and you're like, that's the same excuse I could use, but y'all not only getting that.
Yeah, but
but the funniest was always like when a cousin was naughty or something.
Yes.
Then they would finally be like, at least you are. And you're like, wow, okay, once in a while you can see my good attributes, but that's only because there was someone now worse than you, and they could compare to you again, a comparison. So it's all based on like a tier system. Where do you fall?
And I remember the one time I had balls, guys. I've had balls to say some things to my parents that I don't know where from. I remember saying to them, "You're lucky to have us as children," and they would just like say, "What now?" Like because I was like you know. We don't cause you that havoc, like, you know, like sleepless night, you know, in my mind. I was like, bruh, I'm good. Not to find out that my mom was reading books on how to raise teenage girls. Like, I just remember like, why are you reading this? And she's like, because you guys are complicated. I'm like, bruh, I'm simple. Like, there are worse problems out there.
Yes. Yeah, it's also funny because even my dad, like when people compliment him on like what we're doing, you can tell he's like, begrudgingly taking the compliment. Like he's like happy, obviously, but at the same time he's like, he still has to say some snide comments, like, but they could be doing this. And you're like,
1000%.
Why don't you just say thank you and keep on moving? Like you want to still, and only like people who really know him or like who are really close to him who like push back against that snide comment, like, don't be silly, you know. But like for most of the time that's the last word, like that hangs in the air, that snide comment about how it's still not enough.
Which pokes a hole in your joy.
Yes, again, dude, what are you doing?
For sure.
But I think I've seen a lot of tweets and memes, and especially like with the pandemic, of people comparing themselves financially, and just tying into if social media has also made it worse because there's this whole like luxury movement, or you know, you should be working at a certain standard or making a certain amount of money, or and like I think it's so sad as well because our parents' lives were much simpler. Yes, you know, if you managed to get a mortgage, managed to find a wife, shared your house, had a couple of kids, you were more than wealthy. You know, whereas now it's like that's not enough. You have to have the mansion, you have to be making money, you have to have a huge crypto account, you have to and like go on luxury holidays. Like it's just I think like social media is just then caught onto this and like ran with it. This comparison culture.
For sure, like exponentially, like we will never be the same as people because there's this constant reminder of, oh, someone is doing this. And I'll be honest, I've definitely been guilty of it and affected by social media and the comparison culture it breeds. Because what it does, it makes you kind of, even the moments like for yourself that you're thrilled and happy and like you're happy with where your life is going, it's like, oh, but it's not going that much better than, like it could be better. There's so much more I could be doing. And it's definitely problematic in that regard, also because a lot of the time, again, it's a highlight reel. We've heard it said before. No one's telling you, yo, the struggle I had to do to get X, to then do Y, to then go.
Or that I'm renting it.
Exactly. I don't know if you've watched this show. I don't know if it's on Netflix. I don't know which network it's on, about these three people who want to be famous, and they basically curate their social media. Like they rented out a jet, and it wasn't even like proper
like flying,
like they're flying, but they're not, but posting and people and how they grew their social media. But all that, we've heard it said before, like it's fake, like it's not reality. And we're only showing like the happy moments because you're not really gonna show like you in heartbreak, you know. And I think something that happened was the last year, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, when they lost their baby and shared that. It was very real. And then people were now accusing me, why are you sharing this? But it's like, yo, like that is reality. It's like there is the, you know, getting to jet across the world or do whatever the amazing things they get to do. But the reality is they mourn the loss of a child. And do you get what I mean? So
yes, no, definitely. And I thought that was really great that she shared that, because she has always been quite open with her social media. And I think to not have shared that as well would have just been like also not authentic to her brand.
Yes.
So like it was also like, but then people would never be satisfied again because people only want, I sometimes feel like people also want social media for escapism. So it's like, oh, okay, I don't have it in check, but oh, look what Kim is up to, you know?
1000%.
So it's like
1000%.
people also use, so then when they're people who are on there and doing well are real, have real moments with us, it's almost like it shatters that
bursts
image.
the bubble. Yes.
Yeah, you're like, no.
Yeah.
You know, go back to, you know, the luxe life I love to see. So it's very confronting, I think. And I think what makes it worse is that with social media also comes again, women have it worse. The body image issues, the compare, and like this whole face tuning and lifting this and lifting that and makeup itself. Because sometimes you look at some girls and you're like, bruh, how does she look like that? She just woke up. Like, I don't look like that when I wake up. And then like even porn does this, where it perpetuates an idea of how your sex life is meant to look, how... And like, I feel like it's unrelenting, the comparisons.
We used to complain about magazines only before social media telling us what we should look like the body image. Now we have a 24/7 live show of like, this is what's supposed to be, this is what's supposed to be. And I really wonder when they do studies comparing us post social media and pre-social media, what that's going to look like, you know, on our, you know, not only just like socially, but like mentally, I think physiologically, like so many things, you know, because the lengths people go to, for example, Gorilla Glue Girl, we saw the lengths she went to get the laid edges, like, because laid edges are like your edges cannot breathe. They have to be away to the gauze, you know,
baby
stuff like
hairs.
that. Baby hair, like stuff like that. It's like, it really is confronting. It's making us question ourselves as a society. But definitely for women, I think so, because you know how they say we don't dress for men really as women.
No, we don't.
Dress for each other. And now this is now to another level of like that, like, you know, trying to show up and show off. So yeah, it's definitely real. Like, how do you even like try and tackle it? Like, how do you manage that comparison culture from society, from our families, from, you know, as well as from social media, as well as from stuff like that? Like, how do you handle that, Miss?
I think from family, we'll start with the hardest one. It's just learning to block them out, like not take it, as I said, you know, even when I was cooking that meal for my Rora, I just thought, Amanda, you've done this a million times. It doesn't matter. And even if you burn it, we'll cook something else. Like, don't, you know. So like, I think it's just having that self-awareness to realize to not get triggered so quickly, to not take it personally. It's really tough, easier said than done. But I think especially in a group setting, because sometimes it's a bully tactic as well, like trying to get a reaction out of you. So if you give into that so quickly, it's like, you know, and if you're someone who's very jovial or jokey, maybe even trying to turn it into a jokey thing to not let the weight of it get to you, or it's tough because it just depends on the situation and what's going on. But I've definitely learned over the years to not let it, to just try and mute the noise, and then also to try to do better for the next generation. Like, I don't want to be that aunt in a couple of years' time who's telling, I've noticed like the way I am with my nieces, I'm very open. I let them be, of course I guide them, but I don't like go, oh, this person's doing that, so you need to do, no, like, doesn't need
and
to
your
go
nieces
that
are
far.
great. Can I just say, Amanda's nieces
thank you.
are so adorable. Like, just their level of independence, and like, they are who they are, which is so, I remember when I met them, so refreshing to see in young Black girls. So refreshing, because I've only ever seen it in like young white girls like that, because they have the liberty to be, but it's so refreshing. But they're also grounded, like they know, like to be polite, and that's to go goes to show, like, let people be who they are. It doesn't mean they're not going to
Yeah.
be well-rounded or
Yeah.
well-raised people. Like,
yeah, and you want confident women,
Yes.
especially if they're growing up in diaspora, because they are fighting a lot of comparisons, inner comparisons. You know, my nieces are always saying to my I want straight hair, because that's what they see. They see little Swiss blonde girls, you know. So it's like you need to then now instill that confidence in them and let them be. So your voice now being another voice added on top of the other, it isn't helpful.
Yeah,
so I think that's the only way. And with social media, this one's a tough one.
We still trying to
struggle. Yeah, I struggle because even like this right now, there's like this whole Black girl luxury movement, and people show off their apartments and their blah blah blah, and you're like looking around at your life, you're like, oh. And especially as a business owner, I must also say, because you're trying to obviously attract clients and show that you're also stylish in your own way and that you can help people, and people know that they can get help from you if they see what you're doing on yourself. They think, oh, if she can do it, then. But then sometimes it's like you can have all the knowledge, but doesn't necessarily mean you live that life.
Yes.
Like, you know, if I had a client who's talking to me about Louis Vuitton, I don't wear that myself. It doesn't mean that I don't know about it, but it's like social media has kind of made us think you have to be in it to know it, you know, but it's like you can be an observer and also still be an appreciative of the culture. So I think it's so tough. I'm still navigating it. So any tips, Rimbi, are welcome. Any tips, please? For
me, well, we've spoken about this before, but sometimes I just go off social media for a while. Like, I hate this thing. But I think it's one of those things where you kind of, it's a dance to get to the balance. Like you start off maybe at the extreme of like, I love it, I hate it. You know, like you get to a place where you have a healthy relationship, know when to be on, when to be off. Easier said than done too. Guilty of it. And I think too, who you follow, your algorithm, as they say, is essentially created by you. Like what comes up for you is what you've been into. And also know what's reality. I think you have to touch base with what's reality. That's where our families also bring us back to reality. Like, you know, they'll call you out on your name. They will humble you. But getting, you know, and just have like, I always ask myself, like, at the end of the day, what am I grateful for? So I try to journal almost every evening, like one thing I'm grateful for in the day, just like to keep that perspective of like, what is going well in my life? What am I appreciative of in my life? Separate to, it doesn't have to be a thing, it can be a feeling. It could be anything, you know what I mean? But definitely it's easier said than done, 1000%. I feel like that's the motto of this season so far. Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. We're giving you all the tips of life, but we don't know what we're saying. We don't know how to do it. But I do think social media also depends on the platform.
Yes.
Like during the pandemic, obviously, we saw the rise of TikTok.
Yes.
And like sometimes I'll go on someone's TikTok page and I'll literally see them, no makeup, nothing, no lashes.
Yes.
You go to Instagram and you're like, oh.
Yes, because it's a different platform, for sure.
Yeah. For sure. So like I think now Instagram is becoming more aesthetically pleasing, trying to feed into that whole highlights reel, as you said.
Yes.
But then TikTok is more like you see the actual personality.
Yes. Yeah.
Durag and all doing whatever they need to do. So I think also you need, with social media, you might need to find what speaks to you.
Yes.
I think the nice thing about Gen Z and kids growing up these days, as much as they have social media and they do all these things, they also know the power of it. Like they're conscious of, oh yeah, you're doing that for the gram. Like they'll call you out, you know? Whereas like for us, I think there was a time when we were bamboozled and we thought that what we saw was real.
Yes.
Like we were like, oh, she really is doing that. Like you said, you know, the fake jets. We're like, oh my God, they're really flying. Whereas I think kids these days will literally zoom in and they'll be like, Facetune, we see. We can see it, you know? Whereas I'm like, how do you even use this app? Like, you know, so I think they're consciously aware of the pitfalls. Yes. They obviously will fall through them too, but for most part, I think there's a lot of education that they've probably more than we've had because they've grown up with it.
Yes.
So
1000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
And even if you think of your own, I've had social situations where, you know, being around people and like, oh, I need to do this because I can't be seen like this or whatever. But you see the struggle, maybe they don't really have the thing. You've like in reality. So that's also a reality check. Like you've seen or been in instances like where you're like, it's not quite the life you're showing, you know, and it's like that's also a reminder for us. Keeping up with the Joneses is a facade, y'all. Like it's a facade.
We tell our parents because our parents are still signing up to that.
Whew. Yo. Yeah, pray for us. Pray for us.
Like, I remember my brother once said, you get a girlfriend, then you gotta get a fiance, then you have to get a wife.
Yeah.
Then you have to get married, then you have to get the one kid. And as soon as you have the one kid, the two
When's
kids,
the next
and then
one?
where's your house? Where's the new car? Where's the...
It never ends. Never ends. It's real.
Never ever.
Yo, man. All right, but this has been so awesome. As we always say, let us know, because we don't really know, as you can tell. We could be speaking, you know, we're just trying to navigate this life. But yeah, any final thoughts, Am, on it? Like,
I think especially I would love to know how people deal, how people have created safe spaces for themselves when it comes to being compared.
yes.
And if anyone's still caught up in the shackles of it, you know, especially with siblings, like,
Take the shackles off my feet,
you
so
know,
I can dance. You
cute
wanna
of
release the shackles. I just wanna remove the shackles of comparison.
Because it can stick with you for life. Like, I'm not this person.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm quite keen, so can't wait to hear from people.
For sure. Awesome. And before we leave, our Zim shout out for the day. For the episode.
I know last time it was for the week. I was like, okay, Rimbi is really trying to push some sort of shout out. You want more shout outs than the episodes.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
So we love this movie. Like, we like watched it separately, but we were both like, oh my gosh, and we like full on went into talking about it. But one highlight for us was seeing a Zimbabwean born actor, Nyasha Hatendi, who was in Swan Song. It's a movie that's available on Apple TV, so please check it out if you haven't. His role in that movie is so pivotal to the movie, but at the same time so touching. He did it with such grace. He was just a ball of talent. What did you think?
For sure, and a gentleness too, and just seeing that relationship with his sister was just really beautiful to see. So shout out to Nyasha Hatendi. As Amanda has said, I couldn't add more. It's just a beautiful thing to see. It makes us beam with pride. Like literally, it was like, you know, him in there.
I mean, the movie itself was really good because again, Rimbi and I were like, if this movie was shot 10 years ago, 20 years ago, probably would have been an all-white cast. You know, but to see Black people still being given roles now where they are not just in the ghetto and they're not just, you know, slaves, and they actually can get time to show us just normal life, you know, or normal successful lives. It's just such a beautiful phase we're in. I'm really loving it.
For sure. So check it out if you haven't already. And as always, we love to hear from you. So it's Layered on Instagram, it's Layered Pod on Twitter, and you can email us. It's layeredpod@gmail.com. We're glad to be back. Hope you're enjoying the season so far, and we're gonna catch you on our next episode. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Little girl, use your head.